Diamond P Sports presents Shake, Battle, and Roll 3. Hi everybody, I'm Gary Lee, and welcome to this, our third installment of Shake, Battle, and Roll. During the course of this tape, we will take you to the fairgrounds and the palaces of the sport, like the Indiana Hoosier Dome, where we stage the four-wheel and off-road Jamborees and the Monster Truck Thunder Drag Series. This is the circuit featured on Trucks and Tractor Power, and I believe it offers up the very best in monster truck and mud racing. Monster truck and mud racing are motorsports disciplines that take place on a playing field of mud and destruction. Surfaces that can prevent forward motion. So against this backdrop, we're just getting to the other end is a measure of success. The accent is on hard racing, a style we like to call Shake, Battle, and Roll. Well, buckle up. Here we go. Our first stop, the 1992 Spring Nationals in Columbus, Ohio. First round action, Cold Cobra in the Snakebite Ford. On the far side, taking on Wayne Smozanik and Tropical Thunder. And for Wayne Smozanik, it will be stormy sailing right through the Hydra barricades. Little damage to the truck, but a scare for some of the crew guys standing in behind those barricades. So often in his racing career, Wayne Smozanik has been spectacular. Let's take a look now at the replay. It looks like Wayne may have bent something in the four-link suspension. Once the truck goes to the right, Wayne has no control. He would be disqualified for going out of bounds, but very little damage sustained by the truck or the driver. The Yodoc barriers or JoJo blocks did their jobs. These barriers are actually plastic containers filled with water. They're becoming very popular in motorsports. And look how they'll stop a 10,000-pound truck. Imagine how much damage could have been done had Wayne Smozanik hit a concrete wall. And look how close he comes to our camera position. It may be safer in the truck than what it is to work behind one of these cameras. And you thought television was safe. The following year, the Spring Nationals shifted to Lima, Ohio, where Kirk Dabney in Nightmare was about to have one of his own. Now, Dabney is in the far lane, taking on Wildfoot's Andy Brass in the near lane. And watch what happens to Kirk Dabney in the shutdown area. Substantial damage. Look at that 10,000-pound truck on top of the cage. The cage is intact. And look, Kirk Dabney walks away. He is okay. Now look again, Dabney was in trouble midway through the run. But being young and aggressive, he didn't let out of it. Pushing the truck, he goes over on his head, high sides it, and it goes on over. But once again, the roll cage is intact, and Kurt Dabney was uninjured. The switch from the normal crushed cars to these all-dirt ramps did not suit Kirk Dabney. Keep an eye on the left-hand portion of your screen. Something lets go in the front after he lands, and he high-sides immediately. But Army Armstrong was right there to talk to Kirk Dabney as soon as he climbed out and walked away.
Gary, real quick, things are kind of acting down here on the other end. First of all, are you okay?
Yeah, Army, I'm fine.
What caused the truck to bounce like it?
Well, it looks like front steering linkage let go on the impact after the second jump. It's a little early to tell, but that's what the best guess is right now.
Okay, well, I understand the EMTs want to get a look at you, get over there. Thanks a lot for coming over. Man, we're sorry about the bad luck.
Hey, we'll be back, guys. Thank you very much.
Well, in motorsports, that's the attitude to have. Lots of damage to the fiberglass body, but the chassis held up. Now, the only thing more damaging than the initial impact is when they actually turn one of these things right side up. And notice the message on what's left of the rear gate kind of sums it up, doesn't it? Same race next round, Andy Brass and Wildfoot, the new research and development Ford for Bob and Marilyn Chandler. This was the first race Andy appeared in with this truck on the Jamboree circuit. Talk about being aggressive. Watch this great piece of driving. Remember, this is a 10,000-pound truck pulling this wheelie, making so much power. This is the closest thing to a monster truck blowover. Now watch the wheel stand in no man's land. He hits the second ramp with the back rubber. That tosses the truck over on its nose, and he lands on the front grille. Here's Army with Andy.
In the semifinals, you took a run. I've seen a lot. I've never seen anything like that. What went through your mind on that run?
Well, the only thing I could think of right there when she pulled the wheels, I was like, well, if I let out of it, you know, I knew Equalizer was going to run a good time. I had to more or less stay in it. And I knew if we run her up the hill, she was probably going to nose over after the hill. And we just, when she started to come down, we just tried to stay back in and keep the front wheels pulling and hope she pulled us back down on the ground, and that's what it did.
And as far as mud racing at the Spring Nationals, there has been no shortage of thrills either. 2 appropriately named vehicles, Think Fast in the near lane and the far lane, the Intruder. Well, that's what you call a hold your breath run for both Mike Jennings and Tom Marsh. Marsh gets into trouble around half track and is pretty much along for the ride. He's fortunate to have gathered it up though, just missing the JoJo blocks, which could have really done some damage to the Intruder. That's where he actually had to get back in the throttle and power out in the shutdown area. Now on this replay, watch Tom Marsh take out the far end timing stand. He goes over the berm, across the nose of Jennings, and once he gets the car straightened out, he's back on the power. But it's a disqualification and a sigh of relief.
Tell me out there what happened, just as simple as that.
Well, I think I had a failure on a suspension part out there that's caused it to pull to the right there. And once I got hooked on that wall, all I was concerned with was keeping it on its wheels and getting out of the way of the other guy on the other side there. Because I knew the run, I couldn't salvage anything with the run the way it was going.
Okay, were you in the gas or out of the gas?
I had to get back in it or I would have been upside down for sure, and I possibly could have been, in a tangle with the other guy.
Now we're at the 93 Spring Nationals in Lima, Ohio, Class 6 paddle tires. Tony Farrell in the Blue Ribbon Bandit. He takes on the Instant T with Chad Miller. This is one you tell your grandkids about. You may not see this in another 20 years of watching motorsports. Watch the far lane. The Blue Ribbon Bandit becomes a victim of tire theft. Actually drives right out of his rear tire and wheel assembly. Tony would slide to a stop and watch the paddle tires go upstream, but a most impressive run nonetheless. 2.596, just 4 1/1000ths of a second off the national record. There go the tires. Could this be a classic example of blowing the tires off?
Yeah, I guess you'd call it. I knew something was wrong when I seen both tires pass me.
Okay, what happened?
I don't know. It looks like it broke all my studs off. That's the first time we really ran outdoors in big old paddles with this car. It looked like it's doing its job. It's hooking up. I just got to do a little more beefing up on the rear end.
Now just a thought. Tony competed in the cut tires the night before, and in changing over the paddles, maybe the crew forgot to tighten the lug nuts? The 2 wheel wars would continue in Lima, Ohio. Mike Hickerson in mind games knew he'd really have to get after it with the always tough Ron Pence in Tater in the lane next to him. And it's showtime in the shutdown area. Look at him rock and roll inside that roll cage as he slides to a stop. Now on the replay, Hickerson picks up the front end. Now coming in the shutout area, he burps the throttle, and that's when he provides us with an unusual view of the undercarriage of that Bucket T Roadster. Now overshadowed in all the excitement was that Hickerson bettered the 180-foot national record with a time of 2.56, but Ron Pence bettered Hickerson's mark with a 2.55 elapsed time. Next, Henry Mattingly in Magnum Force over in the far lane, taking on Mike Yosha in Hyperactive. But it's Mattingly who gets a little jumpy. The race appeared to be over. Mattingly clearly beaten, but it looked like Magnum Force perhaps got caught up in some ruts. It has been raining. The track is really chewed up. Now Mattingly gets off to a very slow start, and about right here at half track, he catches a rut. It pitches the nose of that Jeep off to the left, and he drives over and through the Hydra barriers. Now the driver was okay, but watch on this replay the left-hand side of your screen. As if it wasn't wet enough with the rain, Mattingly decides to take a shower. And think how bad this could have been had that wall been made of concrete. And I can tell you from past experience, it's at this time when the driver looks back at that wreck creation and thinks, what the heck am I doing in this sport? Well, the day before in the cut tire class, George Devitek in Dirty Deeds was taking on Chad Miller. A frightening few moments for Devitek, who gets upside down in the mud, where the mud can actually get inside the cockpit, inside the helmet, but the emergency crew is there right on the spot. He is extricated from the crashed car, and he is okay. Here now is another look. It seems like the instant T of Chad Miller is always right close to the action, but the action this time is in your right lane. With a rear-engine car, you have a balancing act to contend with, trying to keep that front end on the ground. Mid-track, the horsepower hooks up, the front end looks a little light. He veers to his left and climbs and rolls over the barriers. Now, as this wreck unfolds, look at the damage sustained by the Dirty Deeds dragster. The front end is knocked off. The wing is sheared away. Not a pretty sight. But once again, the roll cage holds it. Look at that! That's all that's left of the rack and pinion steering. But again, the driver walked away uninjured. He's with Army.
George, it looked like a violent accident. Are you okay?
Actually, in the car is very calm. The cage is real tight and it didn't bounce around.
EMT's right on the spot, a good chassis. You knew it was kind of a dangerous sport going in, but everybody's doing everything they can to make it as safe as possible. I'm glad you're okay. Do you have any idea what caused the accident?
The man on the line said the steering let go as soon as the wheels picked up. He said there was no steering, and I think he's right because it went to the barricades and there was no.
What do you think of these safety barricades now?
I love them. I love them barricades. Yeah. Thank you.
I love them barricades. That's the sentiment shared by many racers on the Jamboree circuit. Here now we share some more excitement from Columbus and Lima, where spring was in the air and plenty of action was on the ground.
Like just get it up.
Well, these Jamborees certainly are a kaleidoscope of sound, action, and emotions. On now to the Midwest Nationals. You know, they call Missouri the show me state. Well, some of the things we've witnessed here in Sedalia, you just have to see to believe. We've often wondered if they built the mud pit over ancient Indian burial grounds. 16-year-old Chris Badling in a Jeep just do it. Here clearly beaten by Jim Bamford, but his problems didn't end at the finish line. Now keep in mind, this is the first time for this teenager in a mud racing vehicle. What an experience the first time out. He's hanging upside down in the harness system. The emergency crew right there on the spot. He's uninjured, but look at his head hit the dirt. as he releases the harness. He's okay, but I tell you, he's going to have a case of racing rheumatism tomorrow. Now watch again. Coming out of the shutdown area, he tucks a right rear and violently goes over side for side. The throttle hung open, the nitrous oxide bottle is spit out, spraying everywhere, and he ends up upside down with fuel leaking on him. And remember, this is in slow motion. I wonder if his driver and instructor is watching. There goes the nitrous oxide bottle, spitting parts off the Jeep, but the roll cage is intact, and the driver's hanging upside down. Now remember, Fadling is only 16 years old, his first time ever in a mud racer, and after a 2.5-time barrel roll, I have to wonder if there'll be a second time in the cockpit for Fadling. Now this is just like hooking a rut with a sprint car. He gets her on the side and it goes over 2.5 times. This youngster is going to have one sore neck. He's tightly strapped in with a neck brace on, but look how much he moves around inside that protective roll cage. Again, this is a time when he has to be thinking, perhaps I should have taken up the sport of soccer. Look at the damage to the Jeep. But fortunately for the teenager, the safety equipment held, the neck brace, the helmet, and the seat harness, and he was uninjured. Now the following year at the same event, Jim McConville, Mr. Four-Wheeler, the far lane. Now it's the same lane that Fadling was in just a year earlier. He's taking on Gary Fain in the Jeep Mud Tuff. Now remember what I alluded to earlier about these mud pits being on top of Indian burial grounds? A lot of action in the shutdown area. And there goes McConville once again, very similar to the crash involving the teenager 1 year earlier. He hooks and barrel rolls as he's about to come out of the pit. Now watch Jim's arms flapping about inside the cockpit on this replay. These mud racers don't normally wear the arm restraints that we would normally see in sprint and midget competition. Another angle. McConville's an old pro. He's not a weekend racer. He's a professional mud racer by trade. It's a good pit. He's on top the rut, but he gets in trouble coming out. Makes a good case for wearing arm restraints. These monster engines make so much torque in one direction during the run that when the driver comes out of the pit and lifts off the throttle, the torque is reversed, creating tremendous strain on the chassis, and this reversing the torque is partly the cause for these cars twisting and rolling over. Well, Jim was clearly dazed, suffering a bloody nose, and was somewhat devastated by what had just happened.
I'm glad to see you're okay. Do you have any idea what caused that?
Well, I sure don't, not right now.
When you get home, when you're driving down the road tonight, will this thing eventually come back to you? I know you got your bell rung. You got beat up real bad. The camera crew just called us and said it was amazing how your arm was flapping around inside that car. Were you aware that your arms were flapping at all?
No, I didn't know what was going on.
Well, I tell you what, I was sure glad to see you come out there and put that old golf cap on. That's a trademark that you're back to 100%. Hope you have a better day next time.
All right, thanks, man.
Well, just a few passes later, Doug Marsh in the near lane taking on Ron Pence and Tater at almost identical results. But now it's in the other lane, and he waves his hand in the cockpit, letting everyone know that he is okay. Now on the replay, the driver of Hard Times was about to have one of his own. Looks like he might have caught a rut, and coming out of the pit, he starts to go sideways. That's the time when it's duck and cover. Head for the cellar, get down as low as you possibly can in the cockpit. This is really a combination of elements. Remember, we talked about the reverse torque coming out of the pit and getting off the throttle, but also you actually lift the front end when you go from the mushy mud to the harder, solid ground, and those combinations tend to serve as a ramp to get the car airborne and roll it over. Now this is a point where you're collecting your thoughts and wondering exactly what did I do.
I don't know.
I was going straight as an arrow.
I think you caught that last rut there.
Doug, it looked to me like you were just making a straight run. What caused it to let go like that?
I don't know. I was just getting ready to let out when I come out the end, and all at once it just spun sideways and started rolling.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. It's happened before. It'll happen again. But I ain't quitting.
Well, Gary, it's kind of interesting. As I walked away, he said he wasn't quitting, but I want you to notice his eyes. You sprint car guys are going to know it's called it red eye. He did get a whack, and he'll be feeling it on the way home tonight, I guarantee you that. Gary, once again, back to you on a day of devastation out of the Show Me State.
Well, Army, the victims here at the Missouri State Fairgrounds would not be confined to mud racers. In fact, the one year there was monster truck racing at the Midwest Nationals, rainy conditions would soon postpone the event. But for Kirk Dabney, it would come one race too late. Well, Dabney was taking on Fred Schaefer, and obviously when you're racing barefoot Fred Schaefer, you have to push to the limit. But in this case, he may have pushed just a tad too far. His driving technique was right on when he got in trouble in the shutdown area and actually got that 5-ton truck up on two wheels. He could reach out and grab a handful of grass if he wanted to. But right here, he kept his foot back in the throttle, and he almost saves it. But then it flips back over to the other side. Kirk was uninjured, and as he walked away, Army caught up with him.
First of all, are you okay?
Yeah, Army, I'm fine.
Okay, you high-sided it back in the throttle. It looked like you're going to be able to pull it out, but it just didn't work for you.
I'm relatively new, so we're not really sure what happened. We're going to have to take a look at the replay and see what happened. We're pretty upset that we've turned the truck over, but we'll be back.
Glad you're okay, dude.
Well, as we take a look from this angle, let's see if we can analyze what happened. Squares up on the jump, looks in pretty good shape right here. As he comes down though in the shutoff area, the rear buck's up in the air. He gets over on the left side, high sides it, stays in the throttle, and almost has it saved, but then it pitches back over and rolls to the right. Once again, minimal damage to the truck, the roll cage is intact, and the driver walked away uninjured. But this wasn't the only run that left an impression from the Midwest Nationals. The scene shifts to the north for the Summer Nationals at the Bloomsburg Fairgrounds in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. Bloomsburg is a quiet little college town in the north central part of the state, but one weekend every summer, it becomes a trucker's paradise when the Jamboree rolls into town. But all the attention shifts to the fairgrounds after a night of cruising where the ultimate off-road machines prepare to do battle. Bloomsburg may be a trucker's paradise, but it's been a graveyard to many mud racing vehicles. These are the remains of the Bucket T driven by Rich Gadidas. Now Rich is in Ratso in the far lane, the 92 Summer Nationals. A late start out of the block, but watch what happens in the shutdown area. The fiberglass body shreds, the roll cage though is intact, and the driver was uninjured. The end zone shot, once again coming out of the pit, is where it all went wrong for Ratso. He appears to be on top of the mud right here, comes out of the pit. The chassis has a mind of its own, turns sharply to the right and starts barrel rolling, pirouetting on the rear and shedding parts. But once again, the roll cage was intact and the driver was hanging on, protected and uninjured. Let's call it chassis magic, but it has to be black magic. Now, we had the luxury of replays as we analyze what happened. Poor Rich, fortunately, only had to go through it one time, and he's still shaking out the cobwebs when Army caught up with him.
Looks like coming out of these pits are causing all kind of problems for guys all year long. It seems like going through the pits one thing, but it's a whole different ballgame when you come out.
Yeah, about 3/4 track, it caught a rut, and it just, when you hit the dry, it really turned me.
Who built your chassis? They did an awfully good job.
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, a wreck like that is certainly tough on the loved ones. As we take a look at the remains of the front axle. Now, a few races later, Matt Ward, the Mystic Warrior from Mechanicsburg, is about to take center stage in Bloomsburg. Well, that's water from the safety barriers, not fuel coming out. The driver's okay. The safety equipment once again did its job. Now, Ward gets up on the berm. It looked like he might flip it over. He comes out of the pit, gets airborne, tucks to the side, and shoots across the other lane and collects the water barriers. Once again, less damage than had he hit a concrete wall head on. Now here's our ISO shot of Ward. Now watch the chassis flexing. He hooks a rut right there and launches it when he hits the right barrier. The sudden stop spins him around and he hits the hydrant barriers. Water going everywhere, minimal damage, the driver is okay. The year before, same class, same bad luck coming out of that far lane. Dean Cloutier in Fireball taking on David Forbotnik in Loose Screw, and the Fireball is about to go up in a ball of flames. Talk about being spectacular, rolls over once, but still has the presence of mind to drive it away. Cloutier's unusual rear-engine Ford bucket did not handle well at all. Fishtailing in the pit, but he really gets in trouble in the shutdown area. He hits a bump, tries to collect it, and rolls it over. It's amazing he kept the engine going, rolls around on all fours, and drives it back to the pit area. Talk about getting your bell rung. The roll bar keeps the weight of the car off Cloutier's head. For the most part, it did collapse just a bit, virtually resting on the helmet following the rollover. He was shaken, but otherwise unhurt. But that go for broke style is typical of many great efforts we've seen in mud racing competition at the Summer Nationals in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. Mud racing at the Quad Cities Nationals in Davenport, Iowa also takes place on a harsh piece of real estate, and 92 NMRO points champion Glenn Seabold can vouch for that. It would be a rough visit for Mr. Seabold during his stay at the Mississippi Valley State Fairgrounds in paddle tire competition. Far lane once again. This time, he pays the wall a visit. But Glenn wasn't the only one to feel the wrath of the Mississippi mud. Sometimes mud is fun, sometimes it's not so much fun. Here's a serious matter involving Ben Medina in the far lane. Through the barrier into the concrete wall. Now you can see him reach down in the cockpit to unfasten the harness system. Now from this in-zone replay, it's very strange, but it looks like he never corrects. He gets out of shape after he went through the timing lights and like a kamikaze pilot heads right straight for the water barriers and then the concrete wall. The car comes apart, but the roll cage protecting the driver is intact. Now here is the ISO of Medina. You don't really see it, but one could speculate that maybe he got hit in the face with a glob of mud. He never makes a move to correct and drives right straight to the barricade. The fiberglass body is tossed off, the front end is peeled away, both sets of axles separate from the frame, much like an Indy car. The parts are flying all over the place, but the protective cocoon that is the roll cage in the cockpit intact, and that's why this driver could sustain a head-on impact with the wall of 70 or 80 miles an hour. Just incredible, that type of wreck, but it was the good chassis and roll cage that allowed Ben Medina to walk away from this one. On to the Canfield Fairgrounds, where lane choice can be very critical, and Mark Hall shows us why in qualifying. The Monsters compete on what is actually a pulling track. So consequently, the dirt is elevated. But watch Mark Hall as he gets over the second set of cars in the shutdown area. Off to his right, the track drops off. And it's like a sprint car going over the cushion with only 4 to 7 pounds of air in that right rear. Right there, the right rear drops down, tucks under, and the truck rolls over. As Hall ends up on his lid, there's lots of body damage, but the driver is okay. From this end zone shot, now watch as Mark Hall clears the second set of cars. Watch off to the left as that right rear will actually drive off the edge of the track. And he starts a barrel roll. Now remember, this is a 5-ton truck, 10,000 pounds, barrel rolling like a child's toy. Now, there's a lot of body damage, but the truck was not severely damaged. In fact, Hall got back into the program and even posted a round 1 win. That exemplifies the battling spirit found at the Thunder Drags. The Monster Street version siblings also get to strut their stuff at the Jamborees and Thunder Drags in the form of the Tough Truck competition, a timed obstacle course over small hills and moguls, and you also get to slap a little rubber at the finish line. For many of these drivers, it's their shot at 45 seconds of fame, and often the roar of the crowd influences their right foot. Not that we have sour grapes, but in the opinion of at least one of our camera guys, it was just desserts. This guy snapped his axle. The day before, our camera cable became entangled in this beater truck, giving you this view of an ikigami being dragged in the mud. Not to worry, our crack engineers had the camera up and running in no time. Thanks to them, the camera would walk away to shoot another day. On now to the Fall Nationals in Indianapolis. We're just trying to get into the Monster Truck program, has provided us with some great thrills. Even a typical #1 qualifier like Andy Brass can get in trouble just trying to make the show. You can see the drive shaft off the rear has been dislodged. Now, as we take a look at this replay, we cannot really second guess why Andy crashes, but he does right here chuck the rear drive shaft. And on the second set of cars, tucks that left rear and rolls it over. But in true shake, battle, and roll spirit, the Chandler team had the big blue Ford ready for the competition the next day. Bigfoot was not only ready, but made it all the way to the finals, where Brass on a sloppy track would push his way past Carolina Crusher to the winner's circle. Tough qualifying sessions may be one characteristic of the Fall Nationals. Weather is another. Rain in Indiana in September is not uncommon. And sometimes the Monster Truck competition at the Fall Nationals can resemble mud racing. But don't expect a little rain or mud to keep these behemoths from their appointed rounds. But the sloppy conditions only add to the gritty flavor of mud racing. From cold and rainy Indianapolis, we head south to Florida Sports Park in Naples, where the Jamboree action is as hot as the weather. Scott Lane, the near lane. It would be a bad lane for Scott and Silent Rage. Well, he gets in trouble as he turns it over, but the safety crew is right there. He climbs out, and Scott was okay. Now he is in trouble right off the bat. He gets in somebody else's rut, pitches off to the right. He overcorrects when he comes out of the pit. That right rear tucks over and sends him upside down. Now you can see the throttle is being winged right there. The rear wheels are still turning. Now it's difficult enough to come out of the pit straight and go from the soft mud to the harder ground. But he comes out sideways, and right there is where he gets in trouble. The car rolls on over, and notice the throttle, inadvertently nailing the hammer. And I can tell you he was juiced up with adrenaline. He's okay, the car's not badly damaged, and the first guy up to him is our Army Armstrong.
Tom!
Let me grab you real quick. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm just fine. It was kind of a ride, but we're going to try and make her again here in a minute.
What caused it to go?
When I shifted, I kind of went sideways and didn't let out of it.
Well, now Mike Posina in the Race Masters chassis rear engine rail is about to set a new record for 140 feet, and he'll do it with a flourish. Now watch him in the far lane. He tries to avoid the junk cars, turns to his right. That's when the rail starts to barrel roll. In fact, barrel rolls across the top of the junk cars. He's just been notified he set the record. He's ecstatic, but watch again. He is headed for these crush cars at maybe 80 or 85 miles an hour. It's the lesser of two evils. He turns sharply to the right to avoid hitting the cars head on and starts barrel rolling. Well, maybe it's a good trade-off. A crash car for a new world record. One more look from behind the starting line. A short, shut-down area. Again, it's very wet down there, and he cranks it hard to the right, just like a sprint car tucking the left rear and going side for side. You think there may be some bittersweet emotions? Army Armstrong talked to Mike.
Mike, I know the safety crew's talking to you. Let me grab you real quick. Are you okay?
I'm fine. I'm just so happy. We've been working so long and hard trying to get this car running and proving to everybody we can do it. I'm just so happy. I ain't even worried about flipping the car now. We just set a new record. I can't ask for any more.
I'll tell you what, the crowd loves you. We're going to let you get out of here. I'm glad you're all right, but I think your actions and your crew members' actions tell it all. It's a great to be number one.
Yep, it sure is. Thanks, Army.
Pushing it to the limit, that's that shake, battle, and roll spirit, and look at the enthusiasm with the crew. To heck with the crash race cars, we've got a record. Well, next, a less joyful ride, courtesy of Wayne Smozanik in Tropical Thunder. Wayne out of Jupiter, Florida, wanted to show off for the home state folks, but this is not exactly what he had in mind of showing off. Takes out the fence and pretty well destroys Tropical Thunder. Well, there's a look at Wayne in the cockpit. The cockpit is intact. Now, sometimes monster truck racing can be a slugfest. In this case, we'll call it a chain link TKO. Now notice that he is not straight when he hits that second ramp. There's no margin for error here at Florida Sports Park. He comes down hard on the right corner, shears off that right front, and then does a nose stand. If this were ballet class, we'd call this a pirouette. Not a position you want to be in when you're strapped in a 5-ton racing truck. And finally, after the long nose stand, the truck falls over, takes out the fence, but see, the cockpit is intact. Wayne starts to take inventory. He's okay, but not so for the truck. Now, this is where they race the swamp buggies, and right here over the second set of cars is where the sippy hole is. And that is the area that sank Wayne Smozanik. There for a moment, it looked like he had the measure of Bigfoot until he got crossed up in no man's land. The long nose stand, and there goes the outside chain link fence. But as always, Army Armstrong was there to talk to Wayne Smozanik.
What caused it to bounce like that?
I don't really know. I stayed in the throttle. I made good runs in qualifying and never hooked at all. I don't know if it possibly had a broken axle in the air. I don't know.
Well, if you're going to do something like that, it's tough to have it happen, but half of this crowd are your neighbors and everything. I'm glad you're okay. Another time, another day.
Yeah, it's a bad time to wreck the truck.
Well, Wayne's fence-clearing cartwheel was just an example of the thunder found down here in Naples, Florida. We cap off the monster truck racing campaign with the Thunder Drags under the big top of the Indiana Hoosier Dome for the greatest show on dirt. And here at the racing capital of the world, the kids love to get up close and personal with these monster vehicles. Hats off to the MTRA Monster Truck Racers. Stand up and accept our applause for all the fireworks you deliver with your show-stopping side-by-side antics. We salute the pilots and their steeds of steel with this moment in the spotlight. The sideshows and the Thunder Drags also help to cap off the season. They provide their own colorful exclamation point to this celebration of horsepower and heavy machinery. At Diamond P, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time we shake, battle, and roll.
Want the best seat in the house for motorsports entertainment? Then Diamond P Sports is your ticket for excitement. From over 40 spectacular titles in the growing Diamond P inventory, you can build a home video library of your favorite motorsports action that you'll enjoy for years to come. For the drag racing enthusiast, Diamond P annually presents the entire NHRA Championship season in review. You get all the dramatic action as the best drivers chase the elusive NHRA Championship crowns. Beginning with Drag Racing 86, you can pick and choose from the entire library of season-long highlights. For an exciting and comprehensive look at recent drag racing history, there's Decade of Thrills and Decade of Thrills 2, examining the most chilling, agonizing, and emotion-filled moments of the 70s and 80s. Now, funny car fans can't get enough of Fabulous Floppers 1 and 2. The sound and excitement of Pro Stocks takes the stage in Hot Rods from Detroit, and Top Fuel is What's Hot in Kings of the Sport. Interested in the legends of drag racing? Diamond P fills the bill with a dynamic story of Don Prudhomme and 2 videos on the one and only Big Daddy, Garlett's The Legend and Garlett's 2, The Legend Lives On. Now, if you're a drag racing history buff, you can trace the evolution of NHRA in Gathering Speed. For those who like their racing loud and raw, don't miss Top Fuel Sensations, the sights and sounds and smell of record-breaking performance, and Challenge of Fire, the thunder and fury of side-by-side jet car racing. If it's monster trucks, mud racing, and tractor pulling that cranks you up, then Shake, Battle, and Roll and Shake, Battle, and Roll 2 are for you. For racing of the H2O variety, there's Thunderboats, a fascinating look at 200-mile-an-hour hydroplanes and the fearless men who pilot them. Sprint car fans love the unpredictable winged world of outlaws from the Knoxville Nationals. Beginning with Knoxville 87, you can get the entire collection of annual mayhem. And fasten your seatbelt for a treacherous journey as Up, Over, and Off-Road takes you from the Baja Desert to outrageous stadium racing. For two-wheel fans, the amazing aerial dogfighting called Supercross fuels the intensity for the flight to the finish. If you're a truck enthusiast, hey, you can't beat the 3-volume set entitled Truckin' Trilogy. It's all the best trucks, competition, and locales from the Truckin' USA TV series. And finally, to complete your library, you must include the best-selling series of And They Walked Away, volumes 1, 2, and 3. Here are the most breathtaking moments from the Diamond P archives, racing's most spectacular spins, flips, wrecks, and fires, and in each perilous incident, the driver beats the odds. To order any of these terrific videos, or to receive a full-color catalog detailing all of the titles available, just call 1-800-421-0725 or write to the address on your screen. Diamond P Sports. We make motorsports come alive.